Good afternoon. You're listening to Cannabis Corner on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We're streaming live on TuneIn Radio and NewHavenIndependent.org. We're also streaming live video on Facebook and YouTube. Just go to your Facebook page, look us up, or hit see first to see and hear all the great programs that we have here on WNHHLP. And just a reminder that Cannabis Corner is also streaming live on the Greenhaven Media Facebook and YouTube page and procannabismedia.com. So make sure you go check us out there. All right, it is Monday, November the 4th, the day before Election Day, 2024. Welcome to Cannabis Corner. I'm your host, Joe LaChance, Joe the Weed Guy, and I am joined here, of course, by my illustrious co-host, Uncle Lou, Farmer Lou. How are you today, my friend?
I am thoroughly enjoying the day. We are pushing forward and doing everything that we're doing. You know, the world is a wonderful place, and realistically enjoying the aftermath of yesterday's great event. I know you guys will talk about it a little bit more as you guys
we'll all talk about
gracious hosts of the event, of said event. But I'm just enjoying the day. I started the day off absolutely invigorating. I got to do one of those really cool sessions with our good friend Uzma.
Oh, okay.
Joe, have you been able? You've been able to do those sessions. Kristen,
I've done quite a few.
Many of those sessions, but they're really invigorating. And Joe can probably talk a little bit more about how positive they are, realistically.
Yes, no, I've been to about 4 or 5 sessions with Uzma. And yeah, and it's really nice. She's got a grounding mat. She gives you flower essences.
Yeah.
You go through kind of a meditation type thing, and she's very talented. She has, like, I think it's Reiki, but she has an energy healing that she does.
I don't know. You know, we talked about it yesterday at that event, and I said, you know what? I'm in the area because I got to go to the bank. My bank is literally right down the road from the office in Stanford. And I took advantage of being down there, and I said, you know what? I'll go do one of the. You know, she has opened invitations for so many people in the community that I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take you up on it, and I went. So
great.
I went and I did it, and I thought it was really cool, relaxing. It was actually a great way to start the day. I, felt rejuvenated. Felt real. It was interesting because it was like, oh man, it's Monday. I didn't even really correlate that once you start getting relaxed and start to, let go of things and open up your chakras.
Yeah.
I'm learning. All right. I'm a new school to new age, I guess.
It's old age, to tell you the truth. That's
there you go.
It really is. That's all ancient knowledge. I don't know why they call it new age, but
for a guy like me, I'm pretty open to a lot of things, but if you know me, I'm a pretty old school machismo. Was raised, I am. There's never been a question that I was a man.
Well, hey, that's it. We all got chakras.
Mine are all messed up.
But I know what you mean. Like, that's stereotypical masculinity doesn't typically shift to things like yoga and learning about your chakras and things like that. I get where you're coming
I disagree, but
hey, that's okay.
Whatever.
That's the best part of it.
I'm saying, like, culture pushes, you know what I mean? I'm not saying men don't do it. I'm saying, like, society as a whole kind of is like, be tough. And that's not always whatever.
Yeah,
don't get me going.
My very machismo masculine Latino father did not tell me to correlate with my chakras growing up. He was the farthest thing from a hippie you could imagine.
Well,
he completely believed in child labor and.
Well, you can still have child labor, and you got actually, if you're going to perform child labor, you better have your chakras all in line. Anyway,
I was working in the mechanic shop and doing manual labor since I was 8 years old, brother.
There you go. All right, so Kristen, might as well welcome you on into the show. Welcome, Kristen, over there in the corner. Kristen Souza, classic Kristen. How are you today?
I am fabulous.
We were talking about that event earlier. Uzma was there. And we had a great time. I want to thank you for all the hard work that you and Rebecca Harvey put into that.
That's right.
It was
Thanks.
really, really well organized, well put together. You guys had an itinerary all set up. It was very, very good. Good food was good. Everything went very smoothly. All the exhibitors, all the vendors, very nice people. I thought it was one of the best fundraisers that I've attended or been involved in a while.
No, that's awesome. Very awesome to hear. You were the exceptional MC of the evening. No, but it was great. Like, and we had, a lot of people that have been on the show, obviously, were either there as sponsors, attendees, had given us donations for the auction. This was the first time I had seen the Emerald Lounge, in human
Yeah, that was
form. I
cool.
love that consumption trailer. That thing is super
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, anybody listening, we had them on the show before, but check out Emerald Lounge Events. It's a very, very cool mobile consumption trailer. They bring it in on a trailer with a truck, set it up. It's got these roll-up windows on the side, and it is a trailer. Like it's narrow, but it's decorated kind of like a living room or like a little lounge, sort of. There's a high
It's
top
got a little
table, chairs,
bar.
and a couch. Yeah.
Yeah, they got nice gravity bongs. It was very, very nice.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing if you have a non-consumption friendly party or something, like if you're doing a wedding and they don't, you don't want to sit on the parking lot and smoke joints like you used to when you were a teenager.
Right.
You go in there, it's a little bit nicer.
Just a little bit of something. And
You
he has
don't
a
have to
gravity
hide in
bong
the
in there, the
car
volcano. Yeah.
from the relatives and all that. But
Worth noting, they do not provide any cannabis, so that is donation. So they are not selling any
you bring
cannabis.
your own
They're not giving it
cannabis.
to you.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have
you
your
bring
own.
your own cannabis with it, but they just provide the bongs and all. Great lighters. They had some really nice lighter cases, really heavy duty stuff. You could have put in your hand, punch somebody with it. But anyway,
Me being me, the thing I was into when I had my store, I used to order. I liked having books in the store. I mean, I'm a book nerd.
oh yeah, they had the books in there.
They had the scratch and sniff book. It's like a hardcover, like a children's book, but each page will tell you about certain terpenes or strains, and you can scratch it and it smells just like it. I mean, it is crazy. Like you scratch it and it smells like weed. I love that thing. I highly encourage you to buy the scratch and sniff book of weed. It's great.
I have to get that. I have to get me one of them. I have to
Yeah,
get me one of them.
very
So yeah,
good.
it was great. Really good time. Enjoyed myself. Great to see a lot of the people up there. Mike Goodenough, Duncan, Aaron Gorman, the ombudsman, people from OHO, nice new exhibitor we had up there. Really good. Anne Marie was there from Higher Health. Haven't seen her in a while. Komora came down.
Yeah.
And Kevin from Connecticut. The Connecticut crew came down, Kevin and his brother. So that was all good. It was very, very nice. It was a very nice mix of everybody from the community. Came together, had a good time. Great prizes auctioned off, great raffle prizes, really good stuff.
Money raised for a good cause, it was absolutely awesome.
Yeah. Yep. So with that, Kristen, what do we got coming up?
Unless I'm missing stuff, my list is relatively short. I'm sure a lot of people know Harvest Cup is next weekend. So where in Massachusetts is that, Joe? I've actually never been to Harvest
DCU
Cup.
Center in Worcester.
Yeah, so that is next weekend. Tickets are definitely still available for that. They're on sale, at their website and through their socials. So definitely check that out. I mean, I hear from everyone that it's absolutely fantastic. For whatever reason, every year I just can't do it that weekend. But yeah, Harvest Cup is this weekend, and that should be great. Are you going up?
Saturday and Sunday? I don't know. It's up to Lou.
Joe and I will
usually go up together.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, Joe and I usually take the ride up together. It's actually a really good time. I go up and I hoard all the lighters I can find in every.
Yep.
The only thing I collect nowadays.
Yeah.
Like this one I've got now is from Rove. So I make it a point that these events I do not have to buy any more lighters. I have this personal credo that I will never buy a lighter again.
Right, me neither. I have a big bag of them.
That's right. And yesterday I got 2 new lighters from Butter. So, shout out to Butter Cannabis for supporting Connecticut's Small Business Cannabis Alliance,
and your lighter collection.
And my lighter collection. So it's a shout out for that. I know that event wise, there's we're starting to move into that holiday season, as crazy as it sounds. It's November 1st. So for many people, it's now the holiday season, whatever cultural holiday that you kind of celebrate during this time. But this is it. As an agriculturalist, you're moving to put your grounds into either your winter crop that's going to, overwinter, that's now being covered by leaves and tarps and kind of getting that stuff going. Your mulches are going, your all the stuff that's just going to sit for the next 3 or 4 months is in that space. And then culturally, whatever area you're from, your little holidays are starting up. Christmas, Thanksgiving, we
got Veterans Day next week.
All different things that are coming up. So it's interesting to see where we're at. And that'll follow up the conversation where tomorrow is election day.
That's right. And speaking of that, there is an event tomorrow that Kimura is hosting. It is not tomorrow, actually. It is Wednesday. It is called The Day After, and it is a community conversation. You can find out more about that. There is a Zoom link. It's a big Zoom conversation that Kimura will be hosting. It's a day after. I don't like to get into political stuff too much on this show, but I think tomorrow is a very important day for the nation and probably for the world as a whole. The way things have been leading up to this thing, it's kind of one of those things you never know. It's like really, really one of those unknowns. Like,
this is staying out of politics, but not. This is more just social economics. America is still what they consider a superpower, even though, I have my own opinions of where we are in technology and things like that. Because if you travel around the world, you're like, oh,
yeah, go to Japan and see how technologically advanced.
Right, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, we don't have bullet trains, and why is it that we aren't using locomotion? Like if you go to Europe, you can take a bullet train, and I'm not just talking Europe, but it's Europe, Asia, certain parts of
South
Africa.
Korea is way more technologically advanced than we are.
And I'm just talking about trains. I'm not even talking about anything crazy. I'm literally just talking about train travel. And in the Northeast, we are blessed to have the Metro North, which is very readily used. But you travel in the country a little bit, all they have is like an Amtrak or a regional train service that's still the same locomotives from the 50s that don't travel as quick as they can. And imagine if we had those trains like they have over in Europe or Asia that can get you from one side of the landmass to the other side. We could be going to California in 10 to 12 hours versus 24 hours. Like it's and
I wonder why. It's very, very true. I wonder why we haven't focused more of our economic power towards that rather than towards blowing up things and killing people. I just don't know, but that's just my thoughts. But you're right. You look at Japan, you look at even South Korea, you look at like you say, Europe. They have a lot of advancements that are more, I would say, traveling by train. A lot of people in Europe travel by train rather than car and things like that. I think if we had that kind of system here in the U.S., we would save a lot. It would probably be more ecologically feasible than everybody driving cars.
If I could grab an overnight train from New York to like San Francisco or something, out to Cali or even LA or whatever, imagine how much cheaper weed would have been.
That's right. That's right.
Imagine, I'm just saying, imagine if you could jump on like an 8 p.m. train out in Cali where, maybe security is a little less as whatever, and take a straight up train ride to New York and just have packs on packs on packs. This is the evil smuggler in me thinking.
Well, let's even take it a step.
Time travel. What can I do here?
Let's take it a step further. What if you could take a train up to Canada? What if you could take a train down to Mexico,
like crossings and stuff?
Well, yeah, but still in Europe, they do it. You go from country to country in Europe all the time on the train.
Yeah, well, our government doesn't like intermingling with other countries, and that's why we have the United States.
I
which
would
is all,
think,
it is
well,
what it
gee,
is.
they sure let the doors open for people to come in if they don't like mingling
If
with
we're
other
not allowed to talk
countries.
about politics and I'm being quiet.
Oh, I don't know if that was political. That was more trains and planes and automobiles.
Yeah, it was about travel and people just traveling.
I'm talking about it the worst way. I'm trying to smuggle weed across
Well, they do. They certainly. Anyway,
in
yeah, we
Europe. Oh
should
yeah,
get
you could
off
get some
this
great weed and
topic.
take it across Europe. But where I'm like seriously, man, because you go back into the smuggler days. That's where the way it was done. You wouldn't jump on an airplane because you were worried about all the extra security. So you get on a Greyhound bus or something and
Yeah.
take the 2 day long trek that you're going to different parts and your undercarriage bag and you're hoping that you don't get a dog coming through or something like that back then.
Yep.
Yeah, but
Or
I gotta say, having traveled in I wouldn't say the 70s, but the 80s, it was a lot less security on planes back then.
oh yeah. Well, that
But
changed because of 9/11. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, when you used to just walk through, like they just wand you with a metal detector, and that was it. You could smoke on planes. I remember smoking a cigarette on a plane.
We took a train, my family, from Connecticut out to we ended up in Texas. We were going to see my uncle in New Mexico. So we took it from Connecticut to Texas. It was a
Wow.
3-day train trip, but they definitely had like a smoking, what are they called on trains? Cabins
Yeah,
or
Yeah,
yeah.
smoking. Yeah.
so one of these, you'd have to like walk through a few, and I'd go down with my dad thinking I was hot shit. I was like 15, So we'd play Uno. We were playing cards in the smoking cabin, and it was just smoky and crazy. It's like,
No. I
There's
remember going to
crazy.
the doctor, and my doctor was smoking in the office as he was talking to
Oh
me.
yeah, it was.
When I was a
I
kid,
have.
we're
We're talking
talking the
about this.
60s. But yeah.
Things are changing, and even to this day, there's still small remnants of it because you know, I want to say 5, 6 years ago, before we did a renovation in one of my fraternity clubs, we owned the building, and we've owned the building since the 50s. So we had things in there since that haven't been renovated since like the 80s. And there was a smoking room in the building where, there was ventilation that was up kept till the 90s. And it wasn't until like 2017 that we were like, oh, well, I guess we'll get rid of the smoking room because nobody really smokes and nothing really happens in this room anymore. And it's just a literal room for people to smoke cigarettes. And you can go outside like the rest of the world now, guys.
Right,
And
right.
it's
Let's
like,
use this
wow, we
room for
gave an
something else.
entire room back.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
should have maintained it for nostalgia. Everyone pile in.
I
Hop back to
tried
the
to, and you
room.
know what? This was a conversation I had because Connecticut had just gone legal, and I was like, "No, guys, we need to keep this smoking room because there's some new laws, and there's some couple brothers who do enjoy to partake, and
Yeah.
sitting outside and smoking isn't a great look, and this is one of those cool places that I knew I could come in and partake inside and not be bothered." And yeah, I was the only guy there doing that. I got vetoed really quick. They were like,
Full
"Take your
ad.
weed outside, bro."
Thank you for your input. No.
Right.
Yeah, they were like, "Yeah, you can go outside."
Very cool. So yeah. So tomorrow we'll see. Kimura's holding that thing, but I'm very interested to see what I'm kind of seeing with this kind of election is that a lot of people are early voting.
You know what? I think that was a good. I think, and maybe Kristen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a topic on the ballots this go around, as if we're keeping early voting or something like that, right?
It was around absentee voting rather. So the early voting, this was the first year we've done it, and it was kind of like a 2-part thing for that, and then also expanding because you can get an absentee ballot. So if you're not able to come in and do early voting or voting on day of, but there's I want to say 3 to 5 very specific reasons. And if you cannot prove one of those reasons, you just don't get a ballot. So we wanted to open up that absentee process where you can just mail it in without going
Yeah.
to a location. Well, I shouldn't say we want to. I just kind of revealed my thoughts, but the decision is whether we do or we do not.
But because people go on vacations, people have trips, people have travel. I was thinking about that myself because I might be, I was almost in the oh, take a ride out to Puerto Rico for the next couple days. And I was like, just, our buddy Jason's out there supporting some of the political things
Yeah, I
going on
saw
out
that.
there. So, and that's another thing, we got Puerto Rico's the only territory that doesn't have a two-party system. We have a four-party system, and we don't have any representation. And this was a conversation that was going on yesterday. So Puerto Rico doesn't have the same Republican Democrat system in
No,
place
they're
because we
opposite,
don't
as a
vote
matter of
for
fact.
representation here on the main island because of everything that the government has set it up, the way that Puerto Rico is separated out, which is interesting. So
It is interesting.
you
Yeah, they
see
have
a different style of politics.
they have senators, but the senators can't vote.
Right.
So they hang out and they just listen.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily through the Republican or the Democratic.
No, they're just
Right.
two representatives from Puerto Rico who go up there and sit in on the Senate and all that, but they can't vote.
Exactly. So it's completely different. So it's like it's not even like they're on one side of the aisle or the other. It's completely independent, and it's like, oh well, here's an idea, but then they don't really care because they can't vote. So it's a pretty tough situation.
They also don't pay they also don't pay federal income tax either.
Right.
So.
And that's where no taxation, no representation. So there's a
right. Yeah, that's exactly the reason why. So
like DC.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So they're citizens. Puerto Rican people who live in Puerto Rico are citizens. They do, but except they do not pay taxes and they do not vote.
I just, I knew that there was no representative in Congress, like in the Senate or the House, but it never occurred to me how the two differences in government structure would interplay with each other. I genuinely have never considered that before. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Kind of unfair for Puerto Rico, but.
And I don't know what the solution would be because you can't force another, you know what I mean? We can't tell Puerto Rico, you have to have your structure like ours.
It's called independence.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, technically, Puerto Rico is a country.
Right.
Its own country. Doesn't have a president. It has a governor.
Right.
And like Lou said, it's 3.5 parties. There's one party that's kind of a party. But there is. And then they're all differing viewpoints.
Right.
So, and what you would consider Republican up in the States is more like what they consider a Democrat down here.
Right.
They're kind of reversed. It's really.
I mean, even in America, at one point it was reversed, but interesting.
And because, these cycles are secular as we continue to, 100%. I'd be one. I think the entire, so we love Harry as he comes in. You would lose citizenship, but that's okay. Most of the other places you wouldn't be a citizen, and that'd be completely cool. But if you were mainland, there's ways to do things. You'd create a dual citizenship program. There's been ideas of when this happens, there's a 10-year leeway where you would apply for dual citizenship. There's a process, and I think that people are smart enough to make it happen. And I think that it could, if it gets voted in and really moved forward. There's a lot of countries. There are some countries in this world that operate on the American dollar as a standard, but not birth citizenship. I hear you. I would be able to get a dual citizenship in Puerto Rico and here in the U.S. Being born in Chicago. So, there's things that happen, and a lot of it's what's going to affect the future. And I think that then there's the fight for statehood. Then you see what happened in Hawaii all over. And it's just where you want to be. And I personally, and this is my personal thought, I'd be 100% fine with Puerto Rico becoming an independent nation, and I'd support it, and I'd be able to move back and forth and do the whole thing. And that's my choice here as a individual. One of those cool things that we get to learn in America.
Well, I'm actually a Puerto Rican resident.
Yep.
But not a citizen. But there, like Harry says, there's a big difference.
And you'll see people that make those choices, and then even when that happens, you'll see people from the island who make the choice to leave the island and become a mainland USer before they took a citizenship in Puerto Rico. So there's both sides of it. But once again, you can't really do much in Puerto Rico. There's no representation because you don't pay taxes. So the other option is if you want representation, there has to be some type of tax implementation. So there's also an entire political party that's fighting for a statehood. So there's both sides of the coin on everything, and it's just where you push your choices.
Yep, I'm trying to reach Kavish. Oh, there she is. She just
She's going
popped
back
in.
and forth.
Okay,
Her kind of getting in and going back and forth. So if we're ready, we can completely jump onto that one right there because our guest is here. Hopefully she's ready. I kind of saw it leaving and coming back.
Yep, she's ready now, I think. I'm going to introduce her. So, with us now, our guest this week is Kavishna Boyd. She's a trailblazer in healing and advocacy, merging her roles as a trauma therapist, cannabis consultant, yoga teacher, and activist into a powerful force for healing. With over 15 years of experience in mental health, she leads Quality Counseling as its CEO, a group mental health practice pioneering a holistic approach to healing generational trauma in the Black community. Quality Counseling integrates mental health therapy, holistic wellness services, and innovative cannabis education, aiming to mend deep-seated wounds and foster intergenerational well-being. In her role as a certified cannabis consultant, Kavishna revolutionizes mental health care, providing continuing education credits to mental health professionals about cannabis's therapeutic effectiveness. She's a vocal advocate for expanding access to cannabis as a legitimate mental health treatment, illuminating its potential to transform lives. Kavnisha, how are you today?
Happy
Lovely
Monday.
to see you.
You too, Joe. Hi, Lou. Hi,
Hey.
Yes, how are you guys?
Oh, we're doing very, very well. So,
Joe, that was a great introduction.
I agree.
Nisha, I'm still. It's so true. I'm terrified of what she does. I'm not even ready for that level of healing. I'm a terrified man in that part. Nisha's a professional at this space, and I'm like, ooh, she does it so well. I don't know if I can face all of my demons that close. I'm like, I don't know about that.
You can, Lou. You can. You've been doing the work. You've been doing the work.
Yeah, you definitely do the work. You 100% put the space in, put the time in, create that space for people. Because I have just out in the street, people are talking about you. I'm like, what?
Okay, like, okay.
You know her.
People that are quality counseling, and I was like, I do. I was like, I know her.
Oh, I love that. That feels so good to hear. Good.
Yeah. So it's a pleasure to have you on again, and we absolutely love seeing you. So I just want to throw that out there. And you're a powerful person doing powerful things, and I think all of that comes from your genuineness, that genuine want to actually spread love and healing. And I really, really, really just see that firsthand. And everybody around you is so positive. It's powerful. It's powerful to say the least. So
thank you. It means a lot coming from you.
So, Kavnisha, we were talking earlier in the show. It's funny about holistic, quote unquote, new age stuff. And you incorporate many different modalities into your healing treatment. Besides, I know that you are an LPC, right?
Yes.
Yes. So you have the let's say the traditional background training, but you also have the training like we were speaking of earlier, yoga, meditation, all kinds of different. I mean, I'm looking at your website and the various different kinds of services you offer are like whole person, not only physically, but mentally and beyond spiritually. It's kind of culturally as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it takes it a little bit past a traditional holistic healing modality into and adding that cultural aspect to it, because I think that people don't really always recognize the fact that besides a person's individual healing, there is some trauma and some things that have happened through generations that still affect the individual, whether they participated in them or not.
Right.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that's very, very, very different key to what you do.
Thank you. I love it. I love it. I wouldn't do anything different.
There you go. I adore that. So now I know we're going to get into talking a little bit about you and what you do or how you got into the space, but I do want to share, you do traditional counseling, right?
Yes.
And then you also have yoga. Please tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more of the different things that you have in your practice and
Yeah, I'm
the
going to
people that
bring
are
up
doing it, because it's
your
not just you, right? You have an entire team. Last time I saw it was a whole workup of amazing women
yeah, I'm bringing
really
it up here
supporting.
on the screen here so we all
Oh,
can
perfect,
see
Yes.
it.
Joe. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I love it.
Perfect.
We are a team of, I believe, 9. And so,
Let's
yes,
bring them
I
down. Here they
say,
are. Here's the team here. Let's shout them out. You got a large
let's
team.
see. Okay.
We
It's a
got
little bit on my end, so I can't see it.
all right. So we got Rahisha Bivens. She's an
Yes.
LCSW. We got Kim
Yep.
McCoy is an LPCA. Tell us a little bit about each one of them. Like, what do they do?
Absolutely. So, what makes Raisha very special is she specifically works with formerly incarcerated individuals, and a lot of that passion comes from her own personal experience, where her brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia, actually also a cannabis user, and incarcerated, and ultimately his mental health, like many other incarcerated people, began to suffer. Miss Kim specializes in working with youth and also survivors of domestic violence. And so Nautica is actually just transitioned out. So she's no longer with us, but her specialty will be special because Samaya started with us as an intern. And
Oh,
so
okay.
now she's grown to be a part-time therapist. Yeah, so she's been with us for quite some time. But what she does is really special in the sense that she particularly works with youth of color who attend predominantly white institutions and schools because colorism and racism affects youth in a different way. And while I think people of color tend to move into the suburbs with the intent that it's a better school system, but there's not a lot of insight in the impact relative to what happens to a student of color when they're the only person of color in the class. Right. And like it's like when you're the only person of color in the room or the classroom, you start to feel really ostracized. Alize specializes in art therapy. We've got Leslie, who works with entrepreneurs. She also is cannabis affirming, and she works with moms. Margarita, who is currently our clinical case manager and our intern, she specifically works with families. So that's also something we're able to do, is not just do the individual therapy, but pull in those conflicts and those strained relationships with family members to say, let's have a family therapy session. And we've got Michelle, who also specializes in family therapy, and she's also bilingual. So she is open and ready to accept clients who do speak Spanish.
Oh,
and then
good.
last but not least, we have Kavis, and Kavis is a trauma therapist. She specifically also works with formerly incarcerated men and women as well.
Wow. So yeah, that is a great, and I noticed they all have the letters behind their names. So they are, we're talking, they have gone through college, school, the
Yes.
training to be a clinical therapist. They have that. But when I look at your services, these are not things they're teaching with the LCSW and the LP.
Yes.
Meditation, collective healing, yoga. The EMDR, that's a big one. That's a big treatment there. Do you do the tapping too?
We do tapping. So I do tapping, I do the eye movements. Yeah, we do all of it.
And substance abuse, substance use and abuse education.
So I've had to actually change the language on my website because I've got a lot of rejections from loans and some partnerships when they see the term cannabis education.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So I had to change it to substance use education.
Oh, but it's okay. I see that.
Right.
It says plant-based healing solutions. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
That's such a hard
That's
thing,
interesting.
as a business. And these are some things that we're all learning as we continue to grow. And that's one of those key takeaways that we try to share. And I know you do as well, that we all try to share with people, taking the words cannabis out of a lot of things and replacing it with substance or plant-based or holistic or any of the other pseudonyms that kind of come with it, because just not even government, this business trying to get loans, trying to be put on certain platforms, trying to be more readily available. And that doesn't even have to do with the government. That does, that's just business. And it's such a hard thing when you're trying to get a loan from someplace. And I had that problem, and I'll shout out the business. It's Square. Square, I had such a huge issue with just the word cannabis or products or whatever is happening, and that's non-governmental and not anything. And a lot of that's got to do with like Chase Bank, which is another headache. Banking is so hard with the word cannabis.
It was extremely frustrating because I wasn't expecting it because I'm technically not a cannabis business.
You got more than cannabis on here.
Right. So for me, it was like y'all took this one word, blew it out of proportion. They didn't leave any space for me to advocate or, to attest it. And so it really put us in a tight financial situation because it was for 2 loans.
Yeah.
And so I ended up having to just redo my branding. And now actually I'm concerned about the social media content, and now like me stepping fully more into a cannabis educator, like what does that mean for now my practice? And now I'm realizing like I have to separate the two completely.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And
it doesn't mean you take a step back. It just means you have to pivot.
Right.
You have to, and that's the tough thing as an entrepreneur. And it's great to see you doing that where you didn't step away from it. Now you're just going to pivot and allocate resources in the places you have to allocate them as you can keep pushing forward, because services like yours are individual realistically, and just taking it from if you're having, and I'm guessing, and I know that you'll fill us in more, but if you're going through a session with somebody, you would then recommend maybe tapping or eye movement or yoga, or maybe you take this time. Hey, my recommendation is you should spend some time in doing some art in this art form, finding different releases than just the conversation with you, where you now find multiple avenues that are individualized for the individual.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's key to what you do. Like, I'm sure you have an intake session, you speak to somebody, bring them in, but now you've brought somebody in, you have all these different resources that they can use for their healing. Like I say, okay, trauma and PTSD. Okay, so fine. Then you got generational and racial trauma. You've got LGBTQIA. You have all that in there. So depending on whatever, and then you have the plant-based medicine. But some people may not need the plant-based medicine.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's great what you do there. And I think it's key, especially for the community you're serving, that we do open up to these new therapies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Therapy, honestly, is not enough. And I'm obviously a huge advocate of therapy. I'm a therapist with a therapist, and I supervise therapists. So I truly do believe it's a powerful tool. But when we're really talking about healing, like you said, Joe, the generational trauma from the experiences that we didn't even experience, but we've inherited, we can't do that through talking. We just can't, because we inherit through talking. So it's literally got to be healed through the body. It has to be.
It's programming. It's literal programming. And we're all programmed here individually, but yet what we don't realize that literally within our DNA is things and traumas and programming that has been passed down generation, not only through generation, but culture to culture, like literally from the Egyptians down to through us in our DNA, encoded in our DNA. And some of that is you're not even consciously aware of it.
Right. Because we've normalized so much of it as just being
part of society, part of who we are. But it's not, and a lot of it is damaging to the human psyche, because a lot of it actually goes against our human nature.
Absolutely.
realistically. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
even and like we're talking about the culture, like the racism, like you were in school. That touched me a lot because it struck a chord in me because I'll be honest with you. I went to school in Westport, Connecticut, and there was one black kid in the school. And you
Mm-hmm.
want to know what happened to him? Committed suicide
Wow.
before, yeah. See,
Yeah.
I'm getting choked up because it was a friend of mine. He was a nice kid. I liked him a lot. And yeah, he committed suicide before we even graduated. So
That's wild.
and that was in the 70s. It was different times, but
No,
still,
it's very common, Joe. It's very
yeah,
common.
when you said it, and even me just talking about it, I remember, he hung himself. And it was a terrible thing. And that's the kind of stuff when I say against our human nature. Our human nature is really to love each other and care about each other, no matter what color our skin is, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And it's the cultural programming that's kind of turned us against each other.
And it's
And
wild.
that's really what it comes down to. We got to get back to our human nature.
Yeah.
Joe, I'll jump in that. So I went to school in Spanish Harlem. There was one Caucasian person
Okay.
in my entire high school. And I was in a very predominantly black and Spanish um, high school where nothing else, no other cultures were really there. And teachers, there was a mixed culture of teachers, but this is Spanish Harlem in the late 90s. So most of our teachers, New York had didn't require you to actually have a teacher certificate to be a teacher in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you were a student and going through an education program. So a lot of these teachers were younger, still in college, kind of going through the system. It's New York City, you know what I mean? There was a whole, you know, thing that went on in that space with the teachers not being certified, and that was kind of my education, and that's where they plopped those teachers when they entered the New York City Board of Ed. They plopped those teachers in like Harlem and Spanish Harlem, and that was our teacher base. So it wasn't until I went to college. I went to University of New Haven, where I was cohabitating, with every nationality, from international
Mm-hmm.
students all the way to the local homegrown, New Haveners. So it's interesting to hear about other people's experiences. And my kids go to school in Hamden, where it's a fairly mixed space, which is pretty cool to see the diversity. But
Right.
Joe, your experience in Westport is probably a very common experience throughout the nation. And
It
it's
is.
tough to hear that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, people
It is. It
don't
is.
realize, we say we've come a long way, and I've seen it change over the years. I'm kind of old, but there are still pockets of the country that are still very, and for lack of a better word, segregated, where there are whole neighborhoods and whole towns that are predominantly, let's say white,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't. A lot of people don't realize some of that. Again, cultural programming from way back is still there in some people, and unless you look at that and dig deep into it and look to heal it, no matter what side of the fence you're on, you know what I mean? Either being a white person who may have that cultural programming, like I said, whether you like it or not, or whether you're a black person who has the other cultural programming, you have to
Mm-hmm.
look into yourself and heal that if you're going to move forward. If we are as a community, as a society move forward, we have to look into that deep
Right.
and heal it.
You know, and I think I'm going to take this from the current conversation at hand. That one commonality that I have found personally is that cannabis has been a driving force
Yes.
to kind of bring, and so it's that you have to find that like-minded, that like issue, that one thing that people are going to be like, oh, wait a second, yep, but this transcends it. And for
Yep.
me, even from
I
high school, it was cannabis. You
I
know,
agree.
um, cannabis was the first place that, even just trying to make friends when I entered college, I had a joint and I was ready to go. Let's go. early 2000s. It's very, 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 very beginning. It's like 99, 2000, 2001. And I'm like, let's go. We're gonna, who's matching? Who's got 5 on it as the very
It's you're right, Lou. It's very true. I have found that cannabis can be a great unifier.
yeah.
And we even look at our community, our cannabis community, very diverse, very, very diverse. And you don't see people, really fighting with each other.
I
It's
have a
more about
question.
how can we help each other?
Right.
How
When you
can we
first
help each
start
other?
Sorry, I
Yeah,
want to
go
say, when
ahead.
you first started your practice, had you always incorporated cannabis-related therapies, or is that something that you added in over time?
I've always incorporated cannabis therapy. So, short story is, I was working for a Department of Corrections for about 5 years, and my mental health was decompensating fast, 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 and significantly. So luckily I had a therapist, and I knew I didn't want to try Western medicines because I'm in it and I see what it does to people and also
Right.
how ineffective it is. So once I got my medical, and I always describe it as like the first safe space where cannabis was accepted, and there was so much education. So as I'm walking around, I'm like learning all these things, what all these books and stuff that she's got going. I'm like, holy crap! Like, didn't know any of this. So then it was like, all right, this is something I need to explore. And so I fully immersed myself into that. And then it was a really traumatic experience at Department of Corrections where somebody on my caseload was murdered by staff.
Ooh.
And it was one of the most traumatic experiences I've ever actually had to work through. And I specifically remember my therapist saying, like, you need to go full time into your practice. And I was very, very nervous. I'm like, how am I going to get clients? And I will never forget. She said to me, she said, you accept insurance and you talk about cannabis. You are never going to be in search of clients. And she was right. She was right.
Right. So
I
it
do
took
love
that.
that.
It took that experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm extending more to educating other mental health professionals because even in casual conversation, I hear some of the myths and the really harmful things that they say and believe about cannabis. And I'm like, well, you're part of the problem now, right? But again, I once was them. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you don't have the education, then you don't have it. And I want to be able
And I
to
can see you
bridge that
providing it,
service gap
like,
for people.
yeah. Your
Yeah,
your
I
social
think that.
media, all the things you're doing. I love those videos where you're really speaking to it. I mean, you're really out there, like your face is there, your voice is there, and you do very good small snippets of instructionals. I love my marketing stuff. You're doing a fabulous
I
job. It
Oh,
resonates
there
very
you
well.
go.
Thank you. Thank you.
You get the seal of approval from Kristen.
No,
No,
and you
it's
can see it's a great way to like get to your fellow, your colleagues, peers, and just folks like me. I've had a therapist. I certainly am not a therapist. Do not come to me though. But yeah, no, it's fantastic. You do a very good job of making sometimes complex topics, and sometimes they're so almost so basic you forget, or for folks like myself, it's things that I've never experienced and wouldn't know. So I know you provide information that people have never even thought about before, and it gets you thinking about certain things. I like it.
Well, thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually moving into um, getting a training accredited about Black and Brown youth in cannabis use because that's a new hot topic. And I'm not, co-signing youth to be using cannabis, but I find that it's an imbalanced conversation where we're not talking about the why you are using cannabis. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that is a testament to the mental health crisis that we're in.
yes.
So it's like, before, let's actually first acknowledge why they're using it, right? And always, any youth I've ever talked to about cannabis, at minimum, it's always, it makes me feel good. And like for me, in a state of depression or a state of anxiety, like that sometimes is enough. And ultimately, sometimes can save the youth's life because, Joe, relative to your story about your classmate who died by suicide, Black youth are the fastest growing group of youth to die by suicide. The fastest. So it is very, very common. So again, there's this magnitude of suffering for the children. And like, again, Western medicine, and there's no outlet for them, you know? And so again, I just think it's an important conversation that we're not criminalizing youth, because that's ultimately what's happening.
Yeah,
they go into
that's
detention,
right. Treating them like
filtered.
criminals, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Infiltrating that prison to school pipeline and all, right? And no, it doesn't have to be cannabis per se, but you know, they need something.
Yes.
So,
Oh, yeah. And then now that cannabis
they
is legal,
need some
we'll
love.
have to see what they come up with next. But
Well,
no, you're
the
right,
research
and
says
I
that
think it's
youth are using it
important.
less.
Right. And what, it's important to educate the youth about the medicinal benefits. And why does it make you feel better when you're depressed? Well, I think the thing with cannabis is, and why it helps with these emotional, like anxiety, depression, is because it helps alleviate the emotional aspect of it. So therefore you can kind of step back and look at it. Why am I depressed? What is causing this icky feeling in me? Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what cannabis does. And I think at the youth, we're a little bit more educated in how medicinal it really is. And, the proper way to use it, like
Yep.
us adults do, right? um, I think it would make a huge, huge difference. And with this mental health crisis with the kids, because it's huge right now. It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's not just with youth, it is with the entire culture, society. We are really, depending on what segment of society, really in a mental health crisis. And a lot of it is what we spoke about earlier, is the cultural programming is totally so far against human nature that it's creating imbalance within the human psyche. But anyway, we are running really close to out of time. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I want you to give out your website, your social media, and any events you're going to be hosting or appearing at. Give it up to Krishna. Tell us
sure. So best way to contact me is through email. So my email is kboyd@qualitycounselingct.com, and my website is www.esha.com. That's where you can find my cannabis stuff. And if you or somebody you know is looking for some mental health therapy, then you can find us at www.qualitycounselingct.com. I don't have any formal events coming up, but I will definitely keep you posted once I get this training out there. I'm hoping to launch it within the next couple weeks, so I'm really excited about it.
All right, yeah, and that's a valuable service. So that would be for like people who are already in the health and wellness business to learn more about cannabis and how to incorporate it into their practices, right? I think that's great.
Yeah,
Spread
absolutely.
that word.
Yeah, so our primary audience is mental health therapists because they can earn continuing education credits, but we can tailor the training to any community provider. I think anybody who's working with youth, honestly, should take the training.
Yeah, I agree. That's great. So, Kadnisha, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll see you out there at some of the great events that we got coming up. And please keep your eye out for Kadnisha Quality Counseling. And all right, with that, Uncle Lou.
Thank you. Say thank you as well. And, just for our guests, if you do have some time, want to take some time, email her. Take the time out to reach out. We all need to do things to make sure we stay healthy and heal ourselves. But on that note, we got to stay healthy, stay happy, healthy, and high, my friends. So make it happen.
All right, Kristen.
It was great seeing you. Thank you. You were fabulous.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Joe.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Lou. All right, Harry, hit that music. You can follow us at Green Haven Media. Like, share, and subscribe to our new YouTube page. Follow me at Joe the Weed Guy. And we will talk to you next week. Good luck tomorrow out there with the elections. Go vote. And vote whoever you vote for. Make sure you're very positive about it. Thank you. Bye bye.